Andrew, stop! Don't kill me, please, Sarah screamed, deliberately angling her wrist toward his mouth so the microphone would capture everything. Shut up. No one can hear you. Tonight you die. The main ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, West Haven. The annual charity gala, Hope for Hearts. A massive crystal chandelier pours down a radiant golden light, glittering as it reflects off crystal champagne flutes and outrageously expensive diamond jewelry. The air is thick with the scent of Chanel No. 5, mingled with the unmistakable smell of money and power. This is the night of Connecticut's elite. At the center of the stage, Dr. Andrew Sterling stands beneath the spotlight, a microphone in hand, radiating the confidence of a god. Dressed in a jet-black tuxedo custom-tailored in Milan, Andrew looks flawless down to every strand of hair. Ladies and gentlemen, $50,000 for the painting Rebirth. This amount will save 3 congenital heart surgery cases next week. Andrew's voice is deep, resonant, and irresistibly persuasive. Thunderous applause erupts throughout the hall. Standing slightly beside him, Sarah Sterling looks more like an expensive decorative accessory than a human being. She wears a backless emerald satin gown that highlights her fragile yet pallid beauty. Sarah's eyes, once sharp and blazing as a top investigative journalist for the New York Times, are now veiled by a dull, cloudy haze. Her hand clenches the stem of a wine glass tightly, trying to suppress the trembling that is creeping from her fingertips up her arm. Andrew finishes his speech amid cheers. He turns, wraps an arm around Sarah's waist, smiling brilliantly at the crowd, while his hand is rigid, hard as iron. "Sarah, long time no see," a familiar voice rings out. Mark, a former reporter and Sarah's old colleague, pushes through the crowd toward them. He looks at Sarah with undisguised concern. "Are you okay? People at the newsroom heard you were—" Instantly, Andrew's arm tightens. His fingers slide into the soft curve of Sarah's waist beneath the thin silk and pinch down brutally on the most sensitive flesh. A tearing, savage pain, perfectly concealed beneath the guise of an affectionate embrace. "Don't say nonsense," Andrew murmurs as he lowers his head to kiss her temple, whispering into her ear in a voice as cold as dry ice. "You're on a high dose of sedatives, sweetheart. Don't make me lose face." A sharp jolt of pain shoots up Sarah's spine, making her flinch. Crash! The crystal glass slips from her hand, shattering across the marble floor. Red wine spreads like fresh blood across the dazzling fabric of her evening gown. The music cuts off abruptly. Hundreds of eyes turn toward them. Mark freezes. In a split second, Andrew switches roles. The cold mask vanishes, replaced by overwhelming concern. He drops to one knee, not caring about his expensive suit, and pulls out a handkerchief to dab at the wine on his wife's dress. "Oh, it's okay, my love, it's okay," Andrew says loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. He looks up at Mark and the surrounding crowd with an apologetic, long-suffering expression. "I'm so sorry, everyone. My wife forgot to take her medication again. This condition causes her hands to lose sensation." The crowd murmurs, "Poor Dr. Sterling, such a saint of a man. That wife is such a burden. Thank goodness he takes care of her." Andrew helps Sarah to her feet and escorts her toward the exit, his hand clamped around her upper arm like a vice. Just before disappearing behind the grand doors, Sarah turns her head back. She doesn't look at Mark. She stares straight into the lens of an event photographer whose flash is firing nonstop. In the photo printed on the front page of the society section the next morning, people see a model husband gently supporting his sick wife. But if anyone zooms in on Sarah's eyes, They will see not gratitude, but the silent scream of a trapped animal. Help me. The next morning, the cold winter sunlight of Connecticut cuts through the floor-to-ceiling reinforced glass walls of the Sterling mansion. The $10 million house is a masterpiece of modernist architecture dominated by two colors, white and steel gray. It is beautiful, pristine, and sterile, like an operating room. Sarah wakes up curled beneath a thick wool blanket. Her breath forms a faint cloud in the air. Before her biological clock can fully stir, the automated curtain system buzzes and slides open precisely at 6 a.m., forcing her to face the blinding glare reflected off the heavy snow outside. She steps onto the oak floor, icy cold shooting straight up her spine. She walks to the smart thermostat mounted on the wall, her trembling finger touching the touchscreen as she tries to raise the temperature to a comfortable 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Access denied. Administrator override active, the system's emotionless electronic voice announces. The number on the screen remains unchanged, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, about 18 degrees Celsius. Sarah sighs and pulls a thick cardigan tightly around herself. Andrew likes it cold. He says low temperatures keep the brain alert and prevent bacteria from growing. But Sarah knows the truth. He keeps it cold so she always feels weak and in need of protection, or simply so she never feels comfortable in her own home. She walks into the kitchen. Andrew is already there, dressed in tight running gear, blending a green smoothie, a mix of kale, seaweed, and all kinds of expensive supplements. Ding! Andrew's phone lights up on the marble kitchen island. A notification from the home management app appears. Motion detected, master bedroom to kitchen. He doesn't need to turn around to know she's awake. He controls every breath this house takes. "Good morning, my angel," Andrew says without looking at her, pouring the smoothie into a glass. "You're 2 minutes behind your recovery schedule. You caused enough trouble last night. Be a little obedient today." Sarah sits down, staring at the smoothie and the multicolored pill tray beside it. "Andrew, please, I'm so cold. Can you turn the heat up a little? Just 2 degrees. Andrew turns around. His smile is perfectly programmed, but his eyes are sharp as surgical blades. He steps closer, gently smoothing her messy hair, then meticulously adjusting her cardigan collar in a way that feels suffocating. "Sarah, my love," he whispers, his voice warm with fake compassion. "How many times have I told you? Higher temperatures slow the metabolism of your medication. You want to get better, to have a clear mind again, don't you? I designed this house from the iris recognition door locks to the temperature of every room for one single purpose." He lifts her chin, forcing her to look directly into his eyes. "I do this to protect you from yourself. The outside world is dangerous, and with your current mental condition, this house is the only safe place. Take your medicine." Sarah holds the pills, staring through the bulletproof glass at the snow-covered garden. She realizes she is not living in a $1 million home. She is living in a luxury prison, where the warden is the man she married and the bars are invisible algorithms. Andrew leaves the house at 7:30 a.m. for the hospital, leaving Sarah alone in the terrifying silence of the smart home. Before leaving, he makes a point of checking her mouth to ensure the blue pill, the one he calls the emotional balance key, has been swallowed. Sarah has to use her tongue to push the pill deep into her throat to fool him, but she doesn't swallow it. The moment the sound of Andrew's Porsche fades beyond the gate, Sarah rushes into the downstairs bathroom to spit the pill out. But her hands tremble violently from the side effects of the previous night's dosage. The slippery pill drops from her fingers, bounces across the marble floor, and rolls into the hallway. "Lucky, no!" Sarah screams. Too late. The 3-year-old golden retriever, Sarah's only loyal companion in this house, bounds over, tail wagging, and snaps the pill up, mistaking it for a treat. Panicking, Sarah tries to pry Lucky's mouth open, but he has already swallowed it. She tries to calm herself. It's just an antidepressant. It should be fine. 30 minutes later, something horrifying happens. Lucky doesn't become happy or drowsy. He starts staggering, bumping his head against the wall. His eyes roll wildly. Then he collapses onto the floor, convulsing violently, white foam bubbling at his mouth. Lucky's painful whimpers tear through Sarah's heart. She knows that if she calls Andrew, he'll simply send his private veterinarian and quietly cover everything up. She needs to act now. She calls Andrew, her voice shaking with fear, and lies, saying Lucky stole and ate a bar of 90% dark chocolate from the table, which is toxic to dogs. Andrew, always concerned with maintaining the image of a perfect animal-loving family, agrees to unlock the garage remotely. "You have 45 minutes. Don't go anywhere except West Haven Veterinary Clinic," he warns through the smart speaker. Sarah drives like a maniac to the clinic. The one who receives Lucky is Emily, a young veterinarian and Sarah's old high school friend, someone Andrew has always forbidden her to see. Inside the clinic, heavy with disinfectant smells, Emily performs gastric lavage and rushes blood tests. 20 minutes later, Emily steps out, her expression grave, test results in hand. "Sarah, you lied," Emily said, staring straight at her. "There's no trace of theobromine in your stomach." Sarah lowers her head. I don't know. Maybe he ate something else." He tested positive for a large amount of chlorpromazine and traces of scopolamine, Emily whispers urgently. "Sarah, this is an old generation antipsychotic used for severe schizophrenia, combined with a temporary memory erasing agent. This dosage could take down a grown man, let alone a dog." Sarah goes numb. She looks into her handbag where the prescription bottle with her name still sits. "Scopolamine?" Sarah murmurs. "That's a brainwashing drug?" "It's called the devil's breath. It paralyzes free will, makes victims obedient, and erases memory." Emily grips Sarah's hand, her own ice cold. "Sarah, what doctor prescribed this to you? This is not bipolar medication. This is chemical poison." For the first time in 2 years of living in a fog, a flash of truth ignites in Sarah's mind. Andrew is not treating her. He is turning her into a living doll, a hollow body trained only to obey. The Porsche rolls through the iron gates of the mansion at the exact moment Sarah puts the mask of a mentally fragile wife back on. But beneath that trembling shell, a cold flame is beginning to ignite. The truth Emily revealed has torn apart the fog that has smothered her mind for the past 2 years. Sarah does not have bipolar disorder. She is not insane. She is being poisoned. Sitting on the living room sofa, Sarah watches Andrew calmly slicing salmon for dinner. He hums an opera melody while glancing at the stock indexes displayed on his iPad. In that moment, Sarah understands his true motive. It is not just pathological control. It is money. The $50 million sterling trust fund left to her by her parents. If she is permanently declared legally incapacitated, Andrew becomes her legal conservator, the sole keeper of that treasure. He does not want to cure her. He wants to bury her alive inside her own body. "It's time for your medication, sweetheart." Andrew says as he walks over, placing the plate of food, a glass of water, and 2 blue pills on the table. He looks at her with the scrutinizing gaze of a prison guard. Sarah's heart pounds violently, but she forces her breathing to stay steady. The instincts of a seasoned former investigative journalist awaken. She knows she cannot stop the medication abruptly. He would grow suspicious if she became clear-headed too fast, or her body could go into withdrawal shock. She has to play a con game with a master con artist. "I'm so tired, Andrew," Sarah murmurs, her voice slack and weak. She picks up the pill and brings it to her mouth. His eyes lock onto her throat. Sarah takes a large gulp of water, tilts her head back, and makes an exaggerated swallowing motion. But the pill does not go down into her stomach. She uses the cheeking technique, hiding it skillfully in the space between her gums and inner cheek, a trick she learned 10 years ago while interviewing drug smugglers in prison. "Good girl," Andrew says with satisfaction. He kisses her forehead and turns away to wash his hands. Immediately, Sarah grabs the empty Diet Coke can on the table, something she always keeps nearby as a bad habit. She pretends to take a final sip, but in reality she spits the pill from her mouth into the hollow can. The sealed aluminum shell becomes a discreet grave for his poisonous doses. That night, lying beside Andrew as he snores rhythmically, Sarah's mind is completely clear for the first time in 700 days. No hallucinations, no mental fog. She lies still, listening to the wind howl outside the window, and begins to plan. She will not run and be dragged back. She will stay, gather evidence, and destroy him from the inside. Journalist Sarah Sterling is back, and this time the subject of the investigation is sleeping in the same bed. The days become a silent battle of wits. Sarah realizes Andrew has absolute faith in his digital systems. He monitors browser history, GPS location on phones, records calls, and controls door access logs. He believes that if the data does not exist, then the event never happened. That is his fatal blind spot. Sarah knows she cannot type anything on a laptop or phone. Every keystroke is recorded by a keylogger. She has to go back to the Stone Age, using tools Andrew's algorithms cannot scan, lipstick and scraps of paper. The only safe place in the house is the master bathroom. Andrew, with the hypocritical morality of a gentleman, does not install cameras and personal hygiene areas, though he does place audiobooks. Every morning, Sarah turns the bathtub faucet on full blast. The roaring water creates perfect white noise, masking all other sounds from the recording microphones. She kneels beside the massive jacuzzi tub. Behind a decorative fake plant is a ceramic wall tile with loosened adhesive, a minor construction flaw that a perfectionist like Andrew has not yet noticed. Sarah uses a nail file to gently pry the tile loose. Inside the damp, dark cavity is her database, not the cloud, but the rough backside of a tile. Sarah pulls out a deep wine-red lipstick, the one Andrew bought her to make her look more alive. She begins to write, the strokes shaky but filled with rage. Jan 12, blue pill, lucky convulsed, scopolamine. Jan 15, he threatened to commit me if I called my mother. Jan 18, he talked to a lawyer about full conservatorship. She records everything, meticulously, each day, each drug he forces her to take that she spits out, and every threat. This is analog evidence, something that cannot be hacked and cannot be erased remotely. While manually logging data, Sarah also begins analyzing Andrew's digital system with an investigator's eye. She walks around the house pretending to admire paintings while actually counting the scan intervals of the security cameras. She discovers something interesting. Andrew installed his modern smart home system on top of an older legacy alarm infrastructure that dates back to when the house was first built. The smoke and fire detectors operate independently from Andrew's central server to comply with state fire safety regulations. A bold idea sparks in
in Sarah's mind. If she cannot defeat Andrew on his high-tech battlefield, she will use this outdated, stupid system to overthrow him. She looks up at the smoke detector on the ceiling, her eyes catching the first glimmer of hope.
A few days later, Sarah's subtle changes, despite her best performance, do not escape the demon's notice. Andrew is a top neurosurgeon. He understands biology and neural reflexes better than anyone. He senses that his doll is beginning to move on its own. That evening, while watching television in the living room, Andrew suddenly turns without a word and switches on his phone's flashlight, shining it directly into Sarah's eyes at close range. Sarah flinches instinctively, squinting and turning her face away from the blinding light. "Pupillary constriction is too fast," Andrew mutters, his voice stripped of fake tenderness and filled with lethal suspicion. He turns off the light and stares at her as if dissecting a strange specimen. "With the dose of scopolamine and sedatives I'm giving you, your iris reflex should be delayed by half a second. Are you developing resistance, or are you hiding something from me?" Sarah's heart nearly stops. She quickly fakes a trembling episode, letting the TV remote slip from her hand and hit the floor with a loud clatter. "I don't know, Andrew. The light is too bright. My head hurts so much." He does not respond. He only curls his lips into a faint smile, a smile that makes Sarah's blood run cold. The next morning, the punishment begins. When Sarah drags herself into the kitchen, she smells no coffee and sees no sign of Martha, the kind elderly housekeeper, the only person who occasionally sneaks her sympathetic glances. The kitchen is cold, spotless, and eerily empty. "Where's Martha?" Sarah asks, her voice unsteady with dread. "I fired her," Andrew replied casually, his eyes never leaving the tablet screen. "She stole a silver spoon. And worse, I discovered she was leaking family matters to nosy neighbors. I can't allow outsiders to harm you, Sarah." Sarah clenches her fists under the table. She knows it is a blatant lie. Andrew has eliminated the last witness. Her only remaining connection to the human world has been severed. But Andrew is not finished. He stands and walks to the central wall-mounted smart home hub. His long fingers glide across the touchscreen, entering a complex sequence of codes. Clang, whir, whir. Heavy metallic sounds echo from the windows. Steel security rolling shutters slowly descend, sealing every window on both the ground floor and the second floor. Sunlight vanishes, replaced by cold, artificial LED lighting. "I've activated level 4 lockdown," Andrew says as he turns back, spreading his arms as if welcoming her into hell. "Wi-Fi is disabled, cellular signals are jammed by a local interference device. Until you're stable again, no one comes in and you don't step outside, not even once. It's just the two of us now, Sarah. Forever." The $1 million mansion suddenly shrinks into an airtight concrete coffin. Sarah realizes there is no way back. She has been buried alive. Day 3 of the lockdown. The mansion is submerged in artificial silence, broken only by the low, constant hum of the central air filtration system. Sarah moves like a ghost through the living room, where sunlight is completely blocked by cold steel shutters. Suddenly, a strange sound cuts through the stillness. Whir, whir. It is not the sound of machinery inside the house. It is the engine of a snowblower from outside the garden. Sarah rushes toward the source of the noise, the sunroom at the back of the house. This is the only area without steel shutters because Andrew wants to preserve the aesthetics of his rare orchid garden. Instead, it is sealed with thick, triple-layer bulletproof glass and vibration sensors. Through the heavy glass, Sarah sees a figure slowly clearing snow from the stone pathway. It's Thomas, the quiet, elderly gardener who has tended this garden for 10 years. He wears bulky, noise-canceling headphones and an old knit cap, steadily pushing the snowblower forward. Sarah runs up to the glass, pressing herself against it.
She pounds hard on the door. "Thomas! Mr. Thomas! Help me!" Useless. The soundproof glass traps every noise inside. Thomas is hard of hearing, and with the noise-canceling headphones on, he cannot hear her desperate screams. His back remains turned as he continues working. Sarah looks up toward the corner of the ceiling. The red LED of the security camera blinks steadily. She knows Andrew could be watching from the hospital. She cannot smash anything or make loud noises that would trigger the vibration sensors. She needs a silent way to communicate. Outside, the temperature is -10 degrees Celsius. The exterior surface of the glass is frozen, while the interior, though cold, is still warmer, creating a temperature difference. Sarah leans close to the icy glass. She exhales forcefully. Warm air from her lungs fogs the transparent surface, forming a cloudy white mist. Quickly, before it fades, she uses her index finger to write reversed letters so Thomas can read them from outside. HELP. Thomas turns to change direction with the machine. He squints, noticing his employer standing pressed against the glass, her face deathly pale, hair hanging loose. He shuts off the snowblower and steps closer. Sarah trembles, exhales again, and writes a second line, more important, fixing the moment of life or death. 911. Mon night. Call 911 Monday night. She points to the words, then clasps her hands together at her chest, her eyes pleading desperately. Thomas stands motionless in the falling snow. He looks at the fading letters on the glass, then into Sarah's panicked eyes. He says nothing. He does not nod. He does not smile. The weathered face of the American laborer shows no emotion. He slowly lifts a hand to touch the brim of his knit cap, a familiar gesture of acknowledgement, then turns away, restarting the snowblower as if he saw nothing. Sarah slides down onto the cold floor, her heart pounding as if it will explode. She does not know whether he understood or whether he believes she is truly insane, as the rumors say. But the dice of fate have been cast. Monday night, 48 hours from now, will be the end of everything.
Night falls. The mansion is swallowed by heavy darkness. Sarah knows waiting until Monday is a dangerous gamble. She needs a plan B. She recalls the architectural layout of the house. The basement HVAC system has an exhaust duct large enough for a small person to crawl through to the backyard, an area outside the camera's line of sight. 1 a.m. Sarah sneaks down to the basement, where the servers and heating systems are located. She uses a quarter to pry loose the rusted screws on the ventilation cover one by one. Cold sweat pours down her forehead despite the freezing temperature. Clink. The last screw drops. Sarah pulls off the heavy metal grill. A blast of icy air rushes in, carrying the scent of freedom. Without hesitation, she crawls into the pitch-dark, dust-filled duct. But she underestimates Andrew's paranoia. He didn't just install cameras. The moment Sarah's body heat triggers a passive infrared motion sensor hidden deep inside the duct, a piercing alarm screams throughout the basement. Weep, weep, weep. The ceiling lights switch to blood red, flashing violently. Unauthorized intrusion detected in HVAC Zone C. Security protocol activated. Panicking, Sarah tries to crawl backward, but her shirt catches on a sharp metal edge. She yanks hard. The fabric tears open, her skin sliced and bleeding. She tumbles out of the duct and crashes onto the icy concrete floor. Less than 15 minutes later, the basement door flies open. Andrew stands there, still wearing his green surgical scrubs, breathing hard from speeding back from the hospital. In his hand is not a gun, but a thick bath towel tightly rolled. Without a word, he steps inside and slams the door shut. The lock clicks, loud and final. I gave you a chance, Sarah. I was patient, Andrew says, his voice low and terrifyingly calm. He advances like a predator cornering its prey. But you keep trying to hurt yourself. He wraps the towel around his right fist. Sarah curls inward, raising her hands to protect her face. No, don't hit my face, please. Your face, Andrew whispered. No, sweetheart, I'm a doctor. I know exactly where to hit you so it hurts the most, and no one can see it. Thud. A brutal punch slams into Sarah's lower abdomen. She folds over, unable to scream, the agony twisting her insides as she retches dryly. Andrew keeps going. He kicks her inner thigh, her hip, places always hidden beneath clothing. Every strike is calculated, leaving no broken skin, only internal bleeding and deep bruising beneath the surface. After 10 minutes of torture, when Sarah lies moaning and motionless on the floor, Andrew pulls a syringe filled with a milky white liquid from his medical bag. He yanks up her sleeve and jams the needle violently into her vein. Sleep, he says, as he injects the fluid. When you wake, you'll be grateful I stopped you from running away. The world goes black. The fragile hope she had nurtured is crushed by raw violence. Sunday morning. Sarah wakes in the vast master bedroom, feeling as if her body has been run over by a truck. The sedatives have worn off, replaced by bone-deep pain from Andrew's punches and kicks the night before. Her lower abdomen is covered in deep purple bruises, her thighs swollen, but her face, the only visible part, remains perfectly unmarked. Andrew sits in an Italian leather armchair, sipping espresso and reading the Wall Street Journal. He wears a white golf outfit, looking relaxed, as if he never turned his wife into a punching bag. When Sarah stirs, Andrew folds the newspaper and places a thick legal folder on the table, stamped with the logo of the most prestigious law firm in the state. You're awake. Good, he says in the tone of a businessman closing a deal. I think we need to have an honest discussion about the future. Sarah struggles upright, pulling the blanket tightly around herself. She looks at the folder. The bold title on the cover slams into her vision. Petition for Permanent Conservatorship. This Tuesday, 48 hours from now, the Fairfield County Family Court will hold an emergency hearing, Andrew explains calmly. With evidence of you crawling into the ventilation duct last night, combined with 2 years of medical records, the judge will sign without hesitation. He stands, walks to the bedside, and looks down at her with cold superiority. When this order takes effect, I will be the only person with authority over your assets, your health, and your residence. You will no longer be a citizen with autonomy, Sarah. You will be like a minor child under my protection. He leans down and whispers her life sentence into her ear. And to ensure you receive the best care, I've secured a place for you at Alpine Serenity in Switzerland. The private jet leaves Wednesday afternoon. No phone, no internet, no family, just snow-covered mountains and eternal peace. You'll stay there for the rest of your life. A chill runs down Sarah's spine. Switzerland is a code word among the ultra-wealthy, a place where inconvenient relatives disappear. Once there, she will vanish from the world. Why don't you just kill me? Sarah asked hoarsely. Wouldn't it be faster? Andrew laughs, adjusting the collar of his polo shirt. Murder comes with prison time, sweetheart. I'm a respected doctor. I save lives. I don't take them. Besides, I love you. I want to keep you safe inside my box. He pats her cheek lightly, then grabs his golf bag and heads for the door. Get some rest. Enjoy your last day in America. I'll have a late shift tomorrow night. I'll be home around midnight to help you pack.
The door closes. Sarah looks at the clock. She only has tomorrow night, Monday night. Freedom or permanent burial beneath the white snow of Switzerland.
Monday, 11:45 p.m. A nor'easter snowstorm, a type of winter storm characteristic of the northeastern United States, was slamming into Westport, turning the outside world into a chaotic whiteout. The wind screamed through the window seams like the wailing of trapped souls. Inside the pitch-dark mansion, Sarah moved down the staircase. She was wearing a thin silk nightgown, barefoot on the icy stone floor. She went straight to Andrew's liquor cabinet and took out a bottle of 23-year-old Pappy Van Winkle, the expensive bourbon Andrew treated like a treasure. Sarah opened the bottle and tilted her head back, taking a large gulp. The amber liquid burned down her throat, giving her a borrowed surge of courage. Then she deliberately poured some of the liquor over herself, letting the sharp alcoholic smell cling to her hair and skin. She needed Andrew to smell the alcohol. He needed to believe she was drunk, out of control. She set the bottle down, grabbed a heavy metal box cutter from the desk drawer, and headed to the basement. Her destination was the server room, the heart of the smart house where the data drives were stored and where Andrew also kept his weapon. He was a member of the National Rifle Association, NRA, and always kept a handgun in the house for self-defense. The server room door was slightly ajar. Blue LED lights from the server racks blinked in the darkness. Sarah rushed to the biometric safe. She knew Andrew had registered her fingerprint long ago so she could access the gun to protect the house when he was away on business. Beep! The safe opened. A black Sig Sauer P226 lay cold and motionless inside. Sarah snatched the gun, her hand shaking violently. She spun around, pointing it toward the doorway, breathing hard. "Looking for this, aren't you?" Andrew's voice came from behind her, colder than the storm outside. Sarah startled and turned. Andrew was leaning casually against a server rack, holding a glass of red wine, completely calm. He hadn't gone to work. He had been home all along, hiding in the darkness, waiting for her to fall into the trap. Andrew took a sip of wine, then raised his left hand. In his palm was a black steel magazine fully loaded with bullets. "Did you really think I'd leave a loaded gun in the house with a mentally unstable wife?" Andrew clicked his tongue and shook his head in disappointment. "You're so naive, Sarah. The gun in your hand is just a useless piece of metal." He stepped closer, one slow step at a time, forcing her into the corner cluttered with electronic cables. "Drunk, dressed like this, holding a gun and planning to shoot your husband?" Andrew sneered. "Well, this will make excellent evidence for tomorrow's hearing. You've just signed your own life sentence." Sarah backed up until her spine hit the freezing concrete wall. She pulled the trigger. Click. The dry sound of the firing pin striking empty space echoed. The gun didn't fire. Andrew burst out laughing, his voice echoing through the enclosed room. But he didn't know that the empty gun was never Sarah's goal. It was only bait. While Andrew reveled in his victory, Sarah's left hand quietly slipped behind her back, feeling for a small device mounted on the low basement ceiling. Andrew's arrogant laughter continued to bounce around the cramped server room. He enjoyed watching Sarah tremble with the empty gun in her hands, savoring the feeling of a cat toying with its prey before delivering the final psychological blow. "Give up, Sarah," Andrew said, his tone falsely benevolent. "Put the gun down and go upstairs like a good girl. Tomorrow morning we'll talk to the judge." Sarah slowly lowered the gun.
but she didn't place it on the table. She let it fall onto the concrete floor with a sharp clatter, then kicked it away toward Andrew's feet. "You're right, Andrew." Sarah lifted her head. The panic in her eyes vanished, replaced by an eerie calm. "This gun is useless, but I didn't come down here for the gun." Andrew frowned, the smile on his face stiffening. "What do you mean?" Sarah pulled her left hand from behind her back. In her hand was not a magazine, but an old Zippo lighter, a keepsake from her father that Andrew had once tried to throw away. "You're far too confident in this smart golden cage of yours," Sarah said coldly. "You programmed it to keep me inside, to control temperature, light, oxygen, but you forgot one basic rule of safety engineering, the fire fail-safe protocol." Before Andrew could understand what was happening, Sarah flicked open the Zippo. Click! A blue flame sprang to life. She didn't light curtains, there were none, but threw the burning lighter into a trash bin filled with dry paper scraps and circuit diagrams sitting beneath the server rack. At the same time, she swung her arm and hurled the bottle of Pappy Van Winkle she had brought down with her. The bourbon soaked the paper and splashed across the tangled electrical cables. Whoosh! The flames exploded violently, fed by the alcohol, engulfing the server rack. "You're insane!" Andrew screamed, lunging forward to put out the fire. But it was too late. The temperature in the room spiked instantly. The heat sensor on the low basement ceiling, the very thing Sarah had targeted, activated at once. Ring! 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 The piercing fire alarm tore through the night, but the sound Sarah was waiting for wasn't the siren. Hiss! 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 The automatic sprinkler system burst open. Hundreds of high-pressure jets sprayed down, not only on the fire, but onto the entire server system running the smart house. "No! My data!" Andrew howled, throwing his body over the hard drives containing his illegal financial records and fabricated medical files. Water met electricity. Crackling explosions echoed. Acrid smoke filled the room. The indicator lights on the racks flickered wildly, then went dark. Click, click, click. The series of mechanical sounds came from upstairs. It was the sound of the smart house's magnetic locks automatically disengaging. Under U.S. fire safety regulations, when a fire alarm is triggered and power is lost, all electronic exit doors must automatically unlock so occupants can escape. "The system is dead! The doors are open!" Sarah shouted over the roaring water as she backed toward the stairs. "It's over, Andrew!" Sarah sprinted up the emergency staircase, trying to escape the flooded basement. The fire alarm continued to scream hysterically, mixing with Andrew's animalistic growls right behind her. The door leading into the main hall burst open. The massive steel door at the main entrance had been automatically unlocked by the fail-safe system. One light push, and she would touch the freedom of the snowstorm outside. But Andrew was faster. He was an athlete. She was a woman weakened by 2 years of confinement. Just as Sarah's fingers brushed the door handle, a force like a sledgehammer yanked her hair violently backward. "Ah!" Sarah screamed in pain. Andrew hurled her onto the slick marble floor. He was no longer the polite, refined doctor. His eyes were bloodshot, his face twisted with fury at the sight of his empire being destroyed. "You bitch! You dared to destroy my servers? You dared to burn my house?" Andrew roared, his voice cracking. He pinned her down, both hands clamping tightly around Sarah's slender throat. "I'll kill you. I'll crush this neck and tell the cops you died in the fire during a psychotic episode." The suffocating sensation hit instantly. Sarah's lungs burned as if on fire, but at the edge of death, she didn't struggle uselessly. She poured every last ounce of strength into her left arm where a black-screened Apple Watch was strapped. Andrew believed it had been dead for weeks because he had confiscated the charger, but he didn't know Sarah had secretly charged it with a power bank hidden inside a box of sanitary pads, the one thing a man like him would never touch. Sarah pressed and held the side button. Emergency SOS activated. The watch vibrated, automatically dialing 911 and activating the microphone. "Andrew, stop! Don't kill me, please!" Sarah screamed, deliberately angling her wrist toward his mouth so the microphone would capture everything. "Shut up!" Andrew screamed back, his grip tightening. "No one can hear you. No one believes a crazy bitch like you. Tonight, you die." The fatal confession was recorded. During the struggle, Sarah's right hand flailed across the decorative console table in the foyer. Her fingers touched cold metal, the silver-handled letter opener used to open mail. She grabbed the blade and slashed upward. A long cut tore across Andrew's face. He howled, releasing her throat and clutching his bleeding cheek. But the pain only drove him further into madness. He violently wrenched the knife from Sarah's hand. "You want to play with knives?" he snarled, raising it high. Sarah didn't dodge. She needed evidence, proof that could not be denied, carved into flesh. She only shifted slightly to avoid her left chest. Stab! The knife plunged deep into Sarah's shoulder. Fresh blood sprayed out, soaking her white silk nightgown red. The pain ripped through her mind, but Sarah bit her lip and stayed conscious. With every ounce of strength she had left, she curled her leg and kicked Andrew hard in the groin. The desperate life-or-death blow sent him reeling backward in agony. Clutching her shoulder, Sarah crawled toward the partially open front door, her blood smeared into a long trail across the luxurious floor. Boom! The oak door was kicked in from the outside. Blinding headlights flooded the foyer, tearing away the darkness. Icy wind and snow blasted inside. "Police! Drop the weapon! Now!" 4 police officers in ballistic vests stormed the house, weapons raised. They had been dispatched not only because of the fire alarm, but also because of a pre-scheduled 911 call from Thomas, the gardener, and the active SOS call streaming directly from Sarah's watch. Before them was a scene that could not be staged. A blood-soaked wife crawling across the floor for her life, and America's perfect husband, Andrew Sterling, standing there with a blood-covered knife in his hand, his face filled with murderous rage. "Hands up! Get down! Get down!" the officer shouted. Andrew froze. The knife slipped from his hand and clanged onto the floor. He looked at the police, then at Sarah, barely alive, eyes wide open, staring straight at him. That was not the gaze of a madwoman. It was the gaze of a victor. 3 months later, Fairfield County Superior Court. The case, State versus Andrew Sterling, became a media sensation across the United States. Andrew, backed by the most expensive legal team in New York, posted $2 million in bail and appeared in court playing the role of a devoted husband attacked by his mentally unstable wife. At the witness stand, Andrew's defense attorney aggressively attacked Sarah's medical records. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Mrs. Sarah has a documented history of bipolar disorder and paranoia. That night, she set the house on fire and stabbed herself in the shoulder to frame my client. The Apple Watch audio recording only captures an argument. It does not prove who held the knife first. The home's camera servers were completely destroyed by water. There is no video, only the testimony of an unstable woman." Andrew sat at the defense table, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. He knew he had won. He had seen the servers smoking and flooded. No data could have survived. Sarah sat across from him, her expression eerily calm. She adjusted the microphone and looked straight into Andrew's eyes. "You're right, Andrew. Your private cloud server is dead. You thought you were the only one who controlled the data in that house." She turned to the judge. I respectfully submit Evidence Exhibit 15, backup footage from Titan Security server. The large screen in the courtroom lit up. The entire room fell silent. Crystal clear video appeared, not grainy footage, but high-definition recordings of everything that happened in the main foyer. In the video, Andrew is clearly seen holding the knife. He is not defending himself. He forces Sarah against the door, screaming, "I'll kill you. No one will ever believe a crazy bitch like you," before plunging the blade into her shoulder. The living saint Andrew Sterling on the screen looked twisted, brutal, demonic. The Andrew sitting in court went pale as death. He collapsed completely. The arrogance of a man obsessed with control had blinded him to the basic truth. Some things are always recorded by a third party. Andrew Sterling was sentenced to 25 years in prison without parole for attempted murder and aggravated assault. 6 months later, Sarah stood on an empty coastal lot in Westport. The remains of the Smart House had been completely demolished. She had sold the valuable land. The sea wind whipped through Sarah's short, edgy hair. She no longer trembled. She no longer feared the cold. She wore a thin T-shirt revealing the long scar on her left shoulder, not as a mark of shame, but as a medal of survival. She pulled out her smartphone, but not to set alarms or check room temperatures. She removed the old SIM card and tossed it into the ocean, then turned and walked toward an old, rugged convertible Jeep, imperfect but free. On the passenger seat lay a freshly completed manuscript, Invisible Bruise, the book that would become a bestseller the following year, exposing the hidden face of psychological abuse among the elite. Sarah smiled and started the engine. She no longer needed a smart house. She had rebuilt her life herself, brick by brick, with the very hands that once trembled.